Hello and welcome to the New Year's. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Uh, so for this New Year's, Patrick and I thought that we'd do like a year-end review for Godot. So we've been working with Godot for 3 months or so, and we decided we'd throw out our opinions as we were once and still are professional Unity devs. And so we kind of wanted to talk about what we like about Godot and where we think Godot could use improvement.
Yeah,
So
mostly it's good things that we've picked up on
it's
in
a lot of
Godot.
there's a lot of good. So let's start with pros. So our first pro is bottom-up processing. So
Yes.
yeah,
So
go ahead.
this is when the lower nodes in a node tree are like processed first and then it goes up. So it's like a consistent execution order, whereas Unity can kind of be random. So timing things isn't as easy in Unity as it is in Godot.
Like I found oftentimes when I was in Unity, I had to like specifically put a delay on things spawning. Just because like it decided that thing was going to render first when it shouldn't have.
Yeah, I found mainly with networking in Unity, like the delays were more necessary. I haven't done that in Godot as much, but yeah, like I generally, if you design well in Unity, but it takes often a lot of thought and a lot of effort, it should work most of the time.
For something that's really not consistent. So
Yeah,
like the extra consistency is always nice.
just because you can design around that, like that's a known way that it works.
Yeah.
And so you can just design everything with that in mind, making it a lot easier.
And so our second thing is something you've added, inspector groups.
Yeah, so in Unity, if you want to like group things in the inspector into like a drop down, um you have to like add them to a class or a struct and then serialize the class or the struct, whereas like Godot just lets you say, "Hey, this is an inspector group," and give it a name, and then there you go. It's good to go.
So are you able to reference that from code?
No, it's purely an inspector UI thing.
Okay.
It's just to keep your inspector nice and clean. So like you know how like transform is a drop down on like a node 2D, and then you have like all these different things that are like drop downs.
Oh yeah, it's for those.
Yeah, those are just inspector groups. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Whereas in Unity, like on a rigid body or whatever, like you had all those drop down things, and those were like classes or structs. At least that's the way I was taught how to do it.
Okay.
So it's a lot easier, I feel, to keep the UI clean
Yeah.
or the inspector clean.
All right. And now the big ones, or a bigger one, tile maps slash better 2D. So Unity, their 2D is kind of half baked and kind of gets worse with time.
Like, yeah.
Like, it really was not a focus for them.
Not initially. You can tell it was definitely like a 3D first engine, and then they kind of added 2D later. Whereas Godot feels like it's the other way around, and like we're mainly 2D devs, where it definitely feels like 2D's kind of like the original focus of the engine, and then 3D got added later.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, like the way the tile maps, especially in Godot 4, are designed is really nice. Like I love the data layers. I just like the way it's set up is super convenient and handy for me.
And the fact that you can add a tile map as the parallax background is really
Yes.
cool. Like,
Yeah, I discovered that while trying to make like a Flappy Bird clone for a mobile video that didn't work out. Was like I just decided to try and throw a tile map into the parallax background, and it totally worked. And it made it loopable and everything. It was great. I was so happy.
like obviously there are issues specifically with physics, and we'll get to that later, but 2D, I like the focus on 2D in Godot. Even though I want
Yeah,
to be moving into 3D more into the new year.
yeah.
Alright. Easily swappable physics engines.
Woo!
That's just
So yeah,
nice. Like,
it's yeah, like if you just want a different feel for your game, you know, like Unity, all the 2D like games and 3D games, like they kind of felt the same way in the physics unless you put a lot of time into it.
yeah,
Whereas like I remember, I think what was it? It was that game where you collected the strawberries. I should know it.
I have no clue.
You're
Oh, Celeste.
Yeah, Celeste. Yeah, like I know they said they chose their game engine based on how it made the character feel.
Yeah, like they
And
went
they
with Mono instead.
yeah. So where yeah, like Godot you can just change it. You don't have to like ditch the whole engine. If you like the engine, you can be like, "Well, I want this feel." And you can just swap in the physics engine.
That is nice. Again, different physics engines have different uses, and we kind of showed that in our previous video where we tested a bunch of them, or all three of them, I guess.
Yeah.
Godot's is the most stable within it, followed by Box 2D,
Mhm.
and
Obviously not being able to set the velocity on objects as we showed in our video that isn't Godot objects or like the Godot physics engine is a big problem that
that's
will
a
eventually be fixed.
yeah. Like I'm assuming that's gonna get better, but okay.
Mhm.
Now for debugging breakpoints. This is just
Yeah.
nice. Like
Not too much to say about it. It can really be handy that you can actually use breakpoints without crashing the whole engine. It's
Like it's just
convenient.
much better for debugging that you can break and then look at like the values of all your variables and everything, like what's doing what.
Yeah, like you can pause in Unity, but like yeah.
Like it's just nice. Not too much to say about it. If you don't know what breakpoints are, look into it. Does GDScript have breakpoints?
I assume it
I
does.
hope it does.
I've not looked. I would guess yes.
Yeah, probably.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say yes.
All right, next, nougat packages.
This has made making certain things in Godot so much easier. Like the whole MIDI video, it took us how long to get MIDI working
In
on
Unity,
fucking yeah, like it was so
with
bad.
so many weird, like outdated Unity projects built
Yeah,
that
like
like
we
had
had
bugs in them already, like serious bugs.
yeah. Whereas that just it kind of just works with NuGet packages, and I am very happy with that.
Like I guess you could tack on like updated .NET
Yes, that's another really
because
nice
you're gonna
thing.
get access to the latest NuGet packages. You're gonna get access to the latest
Language features and
language
everything.
features. I know a lot of GDScript devs will be like use GDScript, but like honestly, the NuGet packages save a lot of time for
Oh
me.
yeah, like
Like so much is built for you, and it's not even just for game dev. And the idea that like
yeah.
it's just built for you, and it's out the box, good to go. Like
And things like the JSON is so like Newtonsoft's JSON is so much better in my opinion than like Godot's JSON serializer.
yeah,
And so there's just so many things where it's like, yeah, Godot does it well, but there's something else that does it better, and you have the option to use that. Whereas in Unity, it's kind of a pain to get NuGet packages going, at least in the versions we use at work.
yeah, and the versions we use, and like again, Unity's on a very old .NET version. Like I think you have to like specifically ask to upgrade to .NET 4
I
in
can't
Unity.
remember.
I think there's like a switch, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
Anyways, signals. Signals are delegates with less work. All
Yeah,
right.
so C Sharp's got a delegate system, which is effectively just how signals work. And yeah, so like signals in the C Sharp version are literally delegates, but you just don't have to do as much of the boilerplate code. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of nice. Unity does have the Unity event system, which is basically just like the signal system. So it's like it's kind of neutral, but I do like that they're just delegates with less.
Like, I found at least in mine, like no one really used the Unity event system because it was heavy and bulky to work with.
I don't think it was heavy at
Oh,
all.
maybe. I don't know.
I use the Unity event system religiously.
Okay.
A couple of my jobs I worked at, like they used it quite a bit. And it's nice. It's very handy.
All right. Tween tools built in. This is from you because I don't know what that is.
Yeah. So every studio I worked at that was like a Unity studio, except the one we currently work at, had .ween in every project. Like that was just like the default thing in Unity was you had to get the .ween package that someone had made. Whereas like
Okay,
so
what is it?
well, oh, yeah, I should explain what tweening is.
Like, yeah.
So tweening is kind of like preset animation. So like if you want something to kind of go in like a spiral that like gets smaller each time it goes around until it, like reaches a steady state at the center, like that'd be like a tween that you could set up. And it would do it each time. You just say like this animation is going to take this amount of time, and you tell it on this object to do it, and it'll just do that animation, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like these preset kind of mathematical animations, and you can just apply them to objects willy-nilly.
Okay.
It's really convenient. Unity, it's super common to see .ween in everything. Like honestly, if you go through the like DLLs on Unity games, you'll probably find .ween in most of them.
Okay, so, but for Unity games, you have to like buy a package, if I recall.
No, you don't have to
No?
buy it. It's free, but you
Oh,
just have
okay.
to download it and install it. Whereas I looked into it today, and Godot has the tweening, like a tween node right built in.
Okay. UI seems better.
Yeah, we haven't delved too deep into the UI. At least I haven't.
I haven't either, but like the fact that Unity had, if you weren't a Unity dev, they did a really dumb move and split UI up. And so you had UI Legacy, which was very easy to use, but was
like,
terrible.
Yeah.
And then you had Text Mesh Pro, which had the weirdest implementation I think I've ever seen into something that you're supposed to use frequently.
Yeah, it was very weird. Like, it didn't operate the same way the rest of the Unity engine operated, so you kind of had to like flip the switch in your brain. Also, just like using Unity's things to align stuff on the UI and everything was very awkward and cumbersome. Like, it was very easy to mess up where things would appear on the UI. Like, especially if you were handling that through code.
Yeah.
But like, it seems like in Godot, from the very little I've done, that might not be as big of an issue.
Like, it definitely still has its own issues. UI is, I think, always going to be a problem in game engines.
Oh, always, yeah.
Because
like
it's not
it's
an easy
hard.
thing.
Yeah, like just talk to any front end web dev. They'll hate. They'll tell you the battle stories of working with UI.
Look in the credits of any like decent budget game, and there's a dedicated UI developer for it.
Yeah.
So it's not something a lot of people like to deal with.
No.
Networking that is properly supported. Okay.
I haven't touched this one, so I'll let you handle it.
Unity, back in the day, like many years ago, killed their networking solution, Unet, and replaced it with literally nothing for like 6 years.
Yeah.
And then when they released their new networking system, Netcode for Game Objects, it was basically Unet again.
Yeah, it was a very similar setup.
It was very similar, and like my experiences with it were that it was horribly unreliable, and the documentation on it was so bad that like I thought, for me at least, it felt unusable.
Yeah.
And
And
they had like a deeper one, like because like netcode for game objects was high end,
high level, yeah.
high level networking, and they had a deeper one that what was the name of it?
Transports.
Transports, which literally had no documentation. It's like you're digging through the GitHub repos to figure it
Of
out,
the
and
developers. Yeah.
of the developers, and that's the one people say is good.
Yeah.
And like I have no idea why it felt so half baked to me.
It really did.
Like
I never used it, but it just seemed like worse Mirror. And I don't like Mirror.
Mirror's not great, but like Mirror works. Like Mirror, you can
Yeah.
get past the weirdness,
Yeah.
but like netcode for game objects, I thought felt pretty bad.
This one's also related to networking.
This one's related. Launch multiple builds at once. Okay. In Unity, you're programming a network game. You launch it not only in the Unity engine, because in Unity, again, if you haven't used it, you have a scene, and like the game is within the engine. So imagine like you see the game within the Godot, like a Godot window. You
Yeah,
have
kind
to
of like how you see scene view, you have a game view.
You have to every time you want to test your game, and it's networking. You're gonna want to test it a lot. You have to compile the game itself and run it. Like Godot just has like you could go into debug and say, "Hey, I want you to run 2 windows at once," and it's like so fast and it's nice and it's so much better for testing that like honestly there's not really much of an argument for Unity's method.
Yeah, because in Godot you can just kind of change how many windows it'll launch when you hit the play button.
Yeah.
And it's just nice. It's not like a major issue unless your game takes forever to build. And Godot's games build really quickly.
Which
Whereas like
is another pro, yeah, is Godot you're going to spend a lot less on compile times.
yeah. But like some Unity games can take a while to build. And then like if it's taken a while and every time you want to test something you're having to build for like a couple minutes, it's annoying.
Specifically if you're doing web networking,
Yeah.
like it was minutes every time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. In a category you labeled as both, and I'm not sure why.
Because I think this is a pro. These are pros and cons, and I think you can roll these two into just like a one thing.
Okay. So, yeah. Need to build your own scene manager. This is you.
Yeah, that's why I'm rolling these into. Just generally in Godot, you are expected to build a lot more of your own tools. There's a lot less of the kind of things built for you. So like you need. Basically, I think you're expected to build your own scene manager because the scene management feels a little weird in Godot if you don't. It's not as like straightforward as Unity's.
Well, and like
And
in the networking documentation, they literally tell you that's what you're expected to do.
yeah, you're expected to build your own scene manager there. Like you had to when testing your web builds, you had to build your own web server that would launch them,
Yeah.
unless you wanted to upload them to itch each time. So, like, just generally in Godot, it seems like you're expected to build a lot more of these things, but I don't think that's an entirely a bad thing because, like, it gives you so much control over things that, like, you can make them really custom to how you like them things to work. Whereas, like, Unity, I don't think you had as much control over those as you do in Godot.
No.
So, like, it's kind of like it sucks, but like once you've put in the time, you'll have something that really fits your game and how you want your game to operate versus just having to work within the Unity system.
Like Godot, I always feel like you're expected to be building your own libraries. And like
Yeah.
if you're doing a big Unity project, like you should be doing that as well, but it feels like Godot is like they expect you for every project to have your own custom built libraries, and we're working on that.
Yeah.
And once we've got a few good features, we will release that to the public for free.
Yeah,
Like
how I talked about in Unity how everyone had to download .ween. It feels like there's a few things in Godot that are going to be like that, where it's like just by default you launch a new project, you install like 3 or 4 packages that you know you're going to be using, and that's just how that works.
yeah. Like again, not super negative or super positive. It's just kind of a neutral point.
Yeah, it's based on how you like things to work. If you want things to be super easy and fast to build, great, Unity's probably a little bit better for that. Whereas if you want things to be a little more custom to your workflow, like Godot's probably a bit better. So it's just kind of neutral.
Speaking of negatives, cons. What does Godot do better or worse than Unity? And
The
first
physics
up,
system.
physics. Physics. Just copy this.
Yeah,
Physics.
I don't like their physics setup at all. Like Unity, when you're detecting a physics collision, every object that has collisions enabled, it will have like 2 functions. There's on trigger enter and on collision enter.
Yeah.
And so like on trigger enter gets called if it's either 2 like in Godot's they're like areas collide, or like an area
And a rigid
and a
body. Yeah.
collide. So that's just going to be called on both objects no matter what. And if 2 solid objects collide in Unity, it'll call on collision enter. Very simple. Very easy to understand when things are going to be called. Godot has a bit of a like weird matrix of like if a rigid body collides with an area, only the area will call that it's detecting a collision. And like
Hold
if
up.
oh yeah, and in Godot, like if a character body 2D runs into a rigid body that's not moving, the rigid body won't detect that it's collided with anything, but the character body will. Whereas if like the rigid body rolls into the character body 2D, they'll both detect that they've collided. So you're kind of like dealing with these things where it's like it's not going to be super consistent. And like the character body won't detect when it's collided with an area. So you've got like these weird mismatch of like things where the character body is probably going to want to handle all the collisions except for area collisions.
Yeah. It's just a weird way of thinking.
Yeah.
And I
Whereas
don't
in
know why,
Unity,
yeah.
it was a lot more straightforward.
Alright. Mobile issues, at least with C#.
Yeah. So in Godot 4.2, I was really excited when it came out. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna do all of these like mobile videos. And so I built Flappy Bird for mobile, and I went to test it, and all the assets were like flickering in and out of existence. Like anything that I spawned with C# were just flickering in and out of existence, and like it wouldn't read my mobile input at all, like even a little bit. And so I was just like, well, I can't release this because I can't release a video being like, hey, this will work eventually,
Yeah, like
but it doesn't right now.
some of their updates feel rushed. And like we were talking to another well-known Godot dev who I don't think we'll mention here.
Yeah, we're not gonna
I'm not gonna
call him
name
out.
him, but like he has said like Godot does rush updates, like half baked.
Yeah, and he's had words with the Godot devs, and he disagrees very strongly with them on that. But it is what it is.
Uh,
Um,
I guess
so
yeah, that is what it
moving,
is.
yeah, like
Moving
it's
files.
Oh, this one makes me so mad.
Yeah, this is a you problem. I haven't run into this one.
Yeah, so like if you've got like a script that you've placed, like maybe you've decided to update your folder structure or whatever, and you decide to move your script through folders, you have to like go and update the reference to each scene and everything that references that script. And sometimes it breaks the scenes, like where you have to put the script back, remove the script from all the nodes that it's on, move the script, and then go and place it back on all the things. And like straight up, when I moved some sprites that were in a tile map once, it destroyed all scenes with tile maps that were referencing those sprites. And even when I replaced the sprites and moved them back, the scenes were just completely broken, and I had to delete them and start over. There's probably a better way of dealing with that, but it was quite annoying to do.
And in my research, it looked like in 4.3 they're working on a fix for this. So
Yeah.
again, in the coming months, like these two last issues will probably be solved.
Yeah.
These are issues
It's
right now that are annoying.
Yeah, because Unity, when you move anything in the engine, like as long as you're moving it in the engine, it will update the references for you. It's super nice. It's super easy. It's a hassle-free process.
Oh. Alright. Having a build for C# to show inspector updates.
This one's just annoying. It's like it's 3 seconds out of your day.
Yeah,
but
like this is such a minor issue.
it's not a big deal at all.
And like realistically, Unity's probably worse. Because like Unity, you're waiting 15 seconds instead of, in Godot, you just click the little build button.
Yeah,
Or
like,
point 2, and then it's like, boom, there it is, but...
it's just Unity does it automatically and Godot has a little process.
You know what? I'm going to tack something onto this. I'm going to
Okay.
tack on inconsistency with builds. Because I remember one time, you came to me and you said, Tate, like, how do you get your variables in the inspector? And
Yes.
this is something I've seen a few, like, Unity YouTubers run into that I watched, like, on their streams, is, like, sometimes the inspector or the scene just won't update.
Yes, I've
Like,
had that.
it seems arbitrary, but, like, that... the fact is, I've seen it a few times, so it's like, it is a problem with Godot.
Yeah.
But maybe it'll be improved in the future.
I assume yes. It seems in 4.3 like they're gonna work on a lot of these like minor gripes, where
And,
it's like it's not it's not gonna change the game. It's just like it's gonna make your day better.
like, a feature I saw they're working on at 4.3 was support for adaptive soundtracks.
Oh, that's
built
nice.
right into the engine. And so I was like, that's really sweet.
Yeah, whereas like in Unity, you were expected to use Wise or Fmod for that.
Yeah, and code it yourself. But like, Wise and Fmod, or WWise and Fmod, are expensive.
They cost a lot of money.
Like, you got $5,000 sitting around, go for Fmod. Or you got 10, go for WWise or something. I don't know how much they cost, but
they weren't cheap.
Not cheap.
Especially for like small indie projects.
Scene view. Oh wait. Oh, okay. This kind of is related to the inconsistency, but not really. Scene view not updating when the game is running.
Yeah, so like in Unity, when you ran your game, the scene view would update. So like if your character was walking around and enemies were spawning, your scene would reflect that. You would see where everything was positioned and everything, and you could fly around and like take a look at everything, click on different objects within the scene,
and even
like
move
get information
objects in the scene
Yeah.
view. So it's like, hey, like I'm having a bug, and I just want to see if like not colliding with X thing is gonna solve it. You could just move your character in the scene view.
Yeah. Or if you were like, oh, I don't know if this gap is big enough for the character to get through, the character could like walk through the gap, and then you'd be like, ah, it needs to be a little bit bigger, and then you could like grow it in the scene view and like make things. You could line things up, and then like save all the positions, and then like apply them once your game isn't running anymore.
Yeah.
That was very nice.
It's
Good.
yeah.
Godot does have like the game camera where you can like override the game camera and move around and stuff, but it's not quite the same.
Like this is kind of like a trade-off for a few things in the pros area, like breakpoints.
Yeah,
Eh,
breakpoints.
Breakpoints and launching multiple windows at once. Because like
Yeah,
the fact
so
is, it's always gonna launch a window when you launch a game. In Unity, it's not gonna do that. It's gonna run it in the engine.
yeah,
Um, it's it's a trade-off. Like
yeah.
I liked the scene view a lot. For things like
hmm
networking, it was not great. It didn't really ever come in handy.
I used it a few times, but it was yeah, it wasn't as valuable there.
So like different strokes, I
Al-
get.
Although when I was using like spawning random levels, actually the scene view came in handy because when the levels would mess up spawning, I could see exactly how they messed up. You couldn't do that obviously with the camera override in Godot, but
And if you're wondering what he's talking about, check out Thick on Steam. You're gonna see
yeah,
random level generation there on Unity project.
yeah,
Final con, and this one you've listed 3 times. I know it
yeah,
bothers you, and I know why they did it because
yeah,
it's industry standard strings for everything. I'm assuming.
yeah.
Like,
Like in Unity, they do their best to never have you typing in a string. Like there's a few systems that run on strings, but like for the most part, you're not going to be using that many strings. Whereas in Godot, you use a string for everything. There's so many strings. And I feel like that just gives you the opportunity to mistype and you don't get the IntelliSense. It's
and
annoying.
you don't get IDE debugging either.
Yeah, that's the IntelliSense.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But like I
Y-
understand why they did it. For web dev, this is standard.
Yeah.
This is so industry standard for web dev. It's just I think for Unity or for game dev, I think the other way was better.
Yeah. Because I think when you mistype some like a string, it's a little harder to debug. Whereas like if you get the IntelliSense and you can autocomplete like an enum or whatever, it's not as bad.
Yeah, or a function name or something.
Yeah.
Because like in Unity Mirror, like you could use a string if you wanted to call something for synced variables, but
Yeah.
like they really wanted you to hook it in C sharp,
hmm
like
Absolutely.
because like it was just like you don't ever have to worry about like you just mistyped it. Like
Yeah.
that's just what it comes down to. Like is this is I think worse for game dev debugging.
And like just string comparison's not the fastest thing in the world.
No.
Like obviously the amount you're doing it isn't exactly slow, but it's just something that annoys me. And like I misspell things all the time. And that's why
Yes.
this is like one that is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, like
Is
I don't run into this as much, but my biggest issue is like did I capitalize something?
yes.
Like that's where I run into the most. So like I'll be swapping between Godot and my IDE to see like did I capitalize saying player? Did I put a capital P or did I not? Like
Yeah. And like what did I name this node? Like that I put under the player, like how did I spell that?
yeah. So I think that's everything we have. So I'm just gonna put a thank you.
Yeah. Honestly, for the most part, Godot has been really nice to work in. I've liked a lot of their things, but it's just like there's a handful of things where it's like they could either do better, or I understand why they did it that way. It's just like I personally wouldn't have done it that way.
Yeah, but I just want to give a thank you to all the Godot devs who put in so much work. I see them interacting so much with people on their Twitter and on the forums. You can tell they really care, and like the engine since we have started in 3 months has gotten a lot better.
Yeah,
That's what I like to see is like Unity was getting worse towards the
yeah, it felt like Unity was going backwards in a lot of ways.
end. I want to say thank you to the Godot community. They have been wonderful. Like we've made mistakes on videos and like they're super kind in pointing it out. Like Unity was getting into the AAA market and it was very apparent with the increased, I think, toxicity towards indie devs.
Yes.
Because like a lot of indie devs don't write good code. Like that's just a fact. But like I've always held the idea, like, even though I tried write the best code I can, that like if it works, who really cares? Um and in the Hexavies dev, he made a joke like, what do you call an indie game with bad code launched? Like you actually
Yeah.
finished the game. So like I like the fact that the Godot community is so welcoming, warming, and just down for different methods of doing things. Like,
Yeah.
because like I made a video on music syncing, and like a person left a really nice comment saying, "Hey, I liked the video. Here's a way better way of doing that." And I felt so bad and deleted the video because with their way, it was not even an argument whether you should be doing my way or not.
Yeah.
And I hope to do another video on that, but I love the community. I love the growth. I love seeing the
Hmm.
growth. I love seeing the Reddit of people showing off their projects, and it's always super positive.
Absolutely. I fully agree.
Um,
All right. Thank
I
you,
think
and
that's
have a
it.
good new year.
Happy New Year! Look forward to many more tutorials in the future. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.
Bye.